Welcome to TERRA at Home with your host, Kris Moretti.
Good morning and welcome to TERRA at Home. On this morning's show, we're actually going to talk about one of the absolute favorites in the edible garden, and that's tomatoes. I'm joined by the TERRA landscape coach, Laura Bittner.
Morning.
Thanks for being with us, Laura.
My pleasure.
Tomatoes are one of my absolute favorite things to grow, and it's because they're so rewarding.
They're very rewarding and they're relatively easy.
They are. So we're going to give you a few great tips because as easy as they are, tomatoes are something that we often get a lot of questions about. And there are some really specific little tips and tricks that can make growing tomatoes that much more successful for you. So the coach and I will be running through some of our favorite tips with little known things that maybe will make your life a little easier when it comes to growing tomatoes.
Yes.
Laura, I think often where we start when we're starting an edible garden is choosing which varieties to grow. And in the world of tomatoes, there are loads to choose from.
There are, and it is really important to actually get to know your tomato before you plant it. Know the size that it's going to become. There are two different types of tomatoes, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate will be up to a specific size, whereas indeterminate can grow kind of no holds barred. Yeah, it can go on and on. So knowing your type of tomato and then choosing that is the best place to start.
So where do you find the information as far as what's determinate and indeterminate? Because that's those are the two main key points in types of tomatoes.
Yeah, plant tags. Read your plant tags, and that's going to be kind of all the information you need will be on those plant tags. So if you are choosing to maybe grow tomatoes in containers, oftentimes determinate tomatoes can be better in a container because you know exactly how big it's going to get and it's not going to take over.
That's one of the biggest things with containers, and you can grow virtually any kind of vegetable in a container. Tomatoes are no exception.
Yes.
But choosing the right variety for the size of container you have and the placement of it is key.
Yes.
So speaking of placement, let's talk about that. Tomatoes have some specific requirements as far as growing when it comes to success. So where should we put them?
Tomatoes want at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. It's a good idea to keep them somewhere where they're going to get a lot of airflow blowing through.
Yeah.
And putting them somewhere where the soil is rich and fertile, which always includes amending your beds, is going to be very important.
So let's talk about the soil. Success with any plant often begins in the soil.
Definitely.
And feeding the soil first is going to ensure that the plant has everything that it needs.
Yep.
So what are some of the steps we should do to prepare our soil for tomatoes?
Well, as you said, fertile soil is very important. So adding things like compost, manure, even TERRA Plus 3 mix will help to build up the nutrients in the garden, as well as give the tomatoes a nice kind of easy place to grow.
Yeah. Adding other things to the soil as well as compost and enriching the soil can help specifically with tomatoes though, is that true?
Yes, fertilizing is very important for good fruit production, really. Things like bone meal, different fertilizers that have a very high amount of calcium in them is going to be important for tomatoes, as the calcium will help to fight a disease that tomatoes can get called blossom end rot.
Now that's a nutrient that you won't find on many labels as far as fertilizers go. We're used to looking at nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, that kind of thing, but calcium is sort of an extra bonus that we should specifically look for in tomatoes. So if the fertilizer mix that you have doesn't contain calcium, you can amend with something like bone meal, which will help to sort of enrich that calcium into the soil for tomatoes specifically.
Yeah.
You're growing your tomatoes this season in containers, I understand.
I am, yes. I've chosen to do them in containers, just simply for the reason that my garden bed doesn't get the kind of sunlight that my front area does. So I have dressed up my containers with different colors and then different color cages as well, as you can see here. And that is another very, very important process, is the caging of tomatoes or staking of the tomatoes.
And that's something that not everyone will recognize, because you see a plant like this that you may pick up at the garden center.
Nice and tiny.
It's nice and tidy, it looks nice and well behaved, but they get big and they
do.
need support.
They do, and oftentimes just simple tomato cages can be enough, but there are other instances where you may notice that you need more of kind of a bamboo stake, something that can help that tomato, especially the indeterminate varieties, reach their height.
So let's talk about planting itself. I have a
Yeah.
tip for people who are planting in-ground tomatoes. If you're buying something that's already done for you in a container, then you're ahead of the game. But if you're planning on adding tomatoes to your garden bed, and even though it's getting a little late in the season, it's not too late when you start with a larger size like this, and that's planting depth. Tomatoes can actually be planted pretty well as deep as you want. And the idea is, often if you've got a larger, leggier tomato, you want it to stay nice and strong and sturdy. So you can actually choose to plant the tomato up to the second set of leaves. You would just break off the bottom stems and plant it all the way up to that next set of leaves, and new roots will form from the stem. So that's kind of a neat little trick. Not a lot of other plants do that, but you can do it with tomatoes.
Yes, and as you said, the roots start up to the stem, and that's going to help support the plant even more as it gets taller and taller and taller.
Another thing that many people may not know about tomatoes is that you can actually prune them. Can you believe that?
Yes, it's true. It's true.
As tomatoes grow, you'll see they get a nice evenly branched structure. They're actually quite beautiful, but in between these larger branches, you'll occasionally see what we refer to as suckers. So they're these smaller branches that are coming up between the main stems and the outward branches of the tomato, and you can actually pinch those off, and I'll show you how to do that. It's really simple. You just find that little, and you just take it out like that.
Just with your fingers.
Just with your fingers, and you can prune that one out there too. What that's going to do is force the plant to focus on the structure that it has. So rather than putting its energy into making this grow bigger, it's going to put its energy into fruit production, which is of course our main objective when it comes to tomatoes.
Exactly. You can think of it as deadheading. You know, sometimes we have to deadhead our annuals to bring more blooms. This is going to bring more fruit.
Of course, we've got some in flower here already. Flowers equal fruit. A little extra trick as well sometimes that you can do when your tomatoes are in flower, if you're so inclined, is give them a shake. Shaking the tomato will actually help it to pollinate itself. Yes. We've got the different flowers that will pollinate and create that fruit on the plant. So giving them a little shake as they're blooming is a great thing.
Yes.
Quickly before we go, Laura, some things grow specifically quite well with tomatoes. So let's talk about great companions to plant with your tomatoes.
Yep, companion planting is basically using other plants to help deter pests and diseases. Marigolds are a great addition to any garden to help deter things like aphids, especially things that would, you know, get onto our tomatoes.
Another great companion are aromatic herbs. We've got some examples of basil here, and those as they flower help to attract helpful pollinators, which will again lead to better fruit production. Hope that's been helpful for you. Thanks for joining us, Laura.
My pleasure.
Tomatoes, of course, are one of the best things to grow in the season, so if you haven't added yours yet, it's not too late with TERRA Incredible Edibles. Join us after the break for more tips from TERRA at home.
Come and explore the new TERRA, where color lives.
When we first bought the house, the lawn was nothing but brown. So I called my father-in-law. You know, he's really good with the lawn. He knows exactly what to do.
Well, I told him you're Scott's turf builder. He said, well, I got this other stuff, and I told him take it back to the store. But some brands have filler like sand and gravel, stuff you don't want on your lawn. Scott's turf builder is pure food. Every granule's 100% nutrition. You get what you pay for every time. You see what happens, Tim, when you listen to your father-in-law?
All food, no filler. That's the Scott's advantage.
Welcome back to Terra at Home, where we're now on location at the Cheese Shop on Locke, of course on Locke Street in Hamilton, and I'm here with one of the owners, Tor Kruger. Thanks so much for being with us, Tor.
You're welcome.
Your shop is beautiful, and it's
Thank you.
just one of the places featured at the Locke Street Farmers Market.
That's right.
So let's talk about the market. Locke Street has a wonderful little scene happening here, and the market takes place throughout the entire summer season. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the market takes place from mid-June to October, every Thursday from 3 till 7, 211 Locke Street South, which is just almost across the street from us here. And we're going to be having a stand there this summer, and there's lots of great local producers there, like Man Around Farms, Earth to Table Bread Bar, Backyard Harvest, Jerry's Berries, so lots of great local growers and producers.
There are so many wonderful little markets here in the Hamilton area because we've got some great local producers. In your opinion, what's some of the benefit of shopping at a farmer's market like Locke Street?
Well, the Locke Street Farmers Market is really a market in the true sense, in the fact that it's really only growers and producers.
Right.
And by shopping at this kind of market, you're supporting the actual growers and producers. Like you're spending the money and you're giving the money to the people that are actually producing our food.
Yeah.
And it's all about diversity. You know, they have some great things that they offer, and I think it's really great for this street in particular.
You mentioned Manor Run Farms. Of course, they're a very local farm producer, and of course they're bringing their own wares to market.
Mm-hmm.
Some markets, you've got stuff that come in from other sources, but this market in particular focuses very heavily on local, produced by the growers and producers.
And it's actually that's the philosophy of the market. They will only accept local producers and growers. That's what a market really should be about.
Yeah, it's sort of a small little scene, which makes it a little more intimate, and you can certainly go there and get to know some of the people who you're buying the food from.
Right,
which
exactly.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
The market begins in June every season, so we're already running, and it goes all the way through to October.
That's right.
You mentioned it's Thursdays, so that's kind of a nice concept where you don't have to get up early on the weekend. You can catch it on Thursday evening.
Exactly. We just had the Taste of Locke last week, which is the official launch of the market.
Yeah.
Which was great. Our shop and some other restaurants participated. We had basically we were using locally grown vegetables and fruits from all the producers and making some dishes, and then people were basically buying tickets and coming around to here to the shop and to some of the restaurants and also to the market itself and trying out some of the samples, and
nice.
it was sold out actually. Great event.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's been a great intro in the community. How long has the market been running?
Since last year.
Okay, so this is only the second year with this particular market going.
That's right. Yeah.
How was it received in its first year?
I think great. I think the street is really was ready for it. And a lot of the people on Locke Street too, they're really all about supporting, the street, supporting locally produced items, food and so on.
Yeah.
And that's actually our philosophy with the store too. That's when we opened the store. That was our big focus. Almost everything in the store is either from Ontario or from Canada. We really don't feature much of anything outside of this country.
For anyone who's not familiar with Locke Street, I mean, it's kind of a little universe in and of itself here. It's a very unique combination of stores. What makes Locke Street so fantastic and unique? And it's really been an up-and-coming area for years. What makes it so fantastic?
I just think, we have so many different stores, I guess, on this street.
Yeah.
We have a butcher across the street, and there's us. There's a chocolatier just down the street here. Then we have boutiques, and shoe stores, and so on. So it's almost like I would say almost like a little bit of a European feel to it. The way you go shopping in Europe, instead of going to a mall, you go to a street like this, and you get everything in sort of one area.
And source it all, of course, right here in your own backyard, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Buying local, of course, has been a major trend sort of creeping into the consciousness of North Americans now, at last.
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen a boost in business in the last few years with that trend happening?
Well, we've only been around, the Cheese Shop has been here for a year and a half now, so we're new.
So you're
new.
new.
So we're new too. But I can definitely tell you that I see a lot of people that come to our store, like a lot of our customers, they're heavily focused on buying local.
Yeah.
And as I said, my philosophy from day one was I want to focus heavily on Ontario and Canadian products. Then I get customers coming in and they really ask me, do you have the latest Fifth Town cheese or Upper Canada cheese?
Yeah.
So they really know that we're producing some great cheeses and some great products now in Canada. And I think people really want to know where their food comes from. So I think more and more it's about education. People are educating themselves, and you know, they don't mind even paying you know, a bit more in the sense that, you know, like a lot of these small-time local producers, you know, their costs are higher, of course, but in the end, you know what you're getting from you know, what you're eating.
Yeah, let's talk about your products specifically here at the Cheese Shop. You've got a beautiful space here where you've got a huge case with lots and lots of cheese.
Yeah, we have over 400 varieties of cheese.
That's amazing. So you focus, of course, largely on local, and this could be a really amazing place to start if you're having a party or even just wanting to throw together a great sandwich where someone can talk to you and find out, you know, what the greatest artisan cheeses have to offer.
Definitely. For instance, this month we're having our Canadian Cheese Month, so we have one case dedicated just to Canadian cheeses, which actually, if you look at it, it's completely full of Canadian products, which I love.
Nice.
And yeah, if you come to our store, we can definitely, you know, we can help you out if you're planning a party or like a wine tasting or things like that. We also hold educational courses here. We have several coming up right now throughout the summer. Where I work with a sommelier, and you know, we talk again. It's also local. She's from Rosewood Estates out in Vineland.
Yeah.
So, and then we're really, you know, again, all about Canadian products. We're talking about Canadian cheeses and Canadian wines and so on. Yeah.
Cheese and wine, they go together very well.
That's
and
right.
Of course, we've got great local scenes for both. Are there specific cheeses that are known in Canada? You think of Canadian cheddar is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other cheeses that we should really be on the look out for that Canada does really well?
Well, I mean, Quebec producers, you know, have become more and more known throughout the world. They've won, you know, worldwide awards.
Yeah.
Le Cendrillon, for instance, is a cheese out of Quebec that won a world's best cheese in 2010.
Wow.
Here in Ontario, Fifth Town from Prince Edward County, they're an awesome cheesemaker. They, you know, everything they do is all about sustainability, and they, you know, they're basically as close as you can get to organic, and they're all about, you know, like zero carbon footprint and so on. You know, so there's a lot of great new cheesemakers that are out now, and also like a lot of established ones that are becoming more and more known throughout Canada and the rest of the world. Definitely, yeah.
For people coming in, maybe taking part in a workshop or just visiting the store, what do you try to convey to them as far as buying local and the benefit of local as far as cheese is concerned?
Well, as you know, as I was saying earlier, I think it's when you buy local, you're really keeping the money here in our province, in our country, and I think,
yeah,
you know, it's great because it helps our economy. It also, like, you really when you support local, then as they continue to grow, then, you know, they can basically invest more in infrastructure, and all around, I think it's better for the producers and the growers, and I think it's better for the consumer because you can really, you know, where you're getting your food from.
Tor, thank you so much for your time and for having this wonderful little gem right here on Locke Street.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, more from TERRA at home. We'll put some of that cheese to good use.
Come and explore the new TERRA, where color lives.
AM 900 CHML is giving you more news when you want it most. Non-stop news weekday mornings 5 till 9, weekday afternoons 3 to 6, with weather and traffic on the 9s. Hear about it first from AM 900 CHML, Hamilton's news talk leader.
Welcome back to TERRA at Home. We're in the kitchen now with Chef Rachel Johnstone. Thanks for being with us as always, Rachel.
Thanks again, Kris.
We are approaching a long weekend. Canada Day is upon us, and it's a great excuse for entertaining. So today we're going to look at putting together a great spread that requires no cooking.
Yes, which is great in the summertime when it's hot and you're entertaining, of course. An Antipasto Platter, cheese platter is one of my favorite things to do, especially entertaining. There's so many different things you can choose from, so we'll talk about some of those options. But I display mine on a nice board.
Okay.
It's just something a little different than a plate, but of course you can use a plate if that's what you have at home.
Well, and this is something that bears conversation, I think. The whole idea of an antipasto platter is not just to have something great for your guests to eat, but it's almost as important, if not more important, that it be visually appealing.
Exactly.
To make it beautiful is kind of the key to a nice antipasto platter. So a board or a beautiful platter is kind of a great place to start.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like you said, it's more than just, you know, the things that you throw on there, 2 different kinds of meat and a couple pieces of cheese, right? You want to make it big and extravagant. Really impress your guests too. So we have a nice board here. I have lots of things, so hopefully we can fit it all on here.
Okay.
But I think I'm going to start with the cheese here. So I have some Asiago cheese and I got some Applewood smoked cheddar. They're a couple of my favorite, so that's what I decided to go with. So when I'm doing an antipasto cheese spread, I like to put the cheese on just whole as it is. I think it's a little more fancy than cutting it into cubes. However, it depends on the party that you're having.
Right.
Right. If there's a lot of people, the ease of little chunks might be better. So you just have to determine. If you're having an intimate dinner party with 4 to 6 people, it's nice just to put the whole brick on there with a couple of cheese knives. So I'll start with the cheese and just put it right in the middle. This one is, I was going to say this is a little big, but let's just put that right on there too. Because we want to fill this up nicely.
Choosing the cheeses that you want to put out, I mean, that's got to be a tough decision. Is there a key to choosing cheeses that go with meats specifically?
Yes, I think that is a good point. You definitely want to choose your cheeses wisely. And in saying that, when you're doing a spread like this, like we talked about, variety is very important. So, I mean, Asiago is a little bit of a harder cheese, so I wouldn't put as my 2 cheeses Asiago and Parmesan. They're both hard cheeses, so I like to mix it up a bit. Usually if I'm doing a big enough spread that I have a board just for cheese and a board just for the meat, I'll put 3 or 4 different kinds of cheeses on, starting from a soft cheese like a brie. I always throw a blue in there because it's something different. It also gives, the color difference.
Right.
And then I get to the more hard cheese. Parmesan is one of my favorites. I do like to eat it just by itself, maybe with a little bit of honey or balsamic, but it is quite hard and quite strong.
Right.
So I don't usually choose that one if I'm having guests over, but Asiago's something that's just a little step down from there.
Okay.
So in this case, we have a little bit of color with the rind. This is a little more orange, right, than this cheese, and we have the texture difference.
Sounds good.
So for these two, I think that's good. Moving on to the meats. Antipasto is an Italian thing, so I usually try to stick with the Italian meats.
Okay.
I always put prosciutto on. It's a personal favorite of mine, but I mean, the possibilities are really endless with cheese and meat, right?
Well, and shopping for your antipasto platter can be almost as fun as putting it together. And going to those little artisan shops, places where you're going to find unique selections, maybe the butcher's specialty in charcuterie, that kind of thing. Maybe getting the advice of the house is a good place to start if you're a little afraid of putting together flavors yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always like to go to the local cheese shop to pick up my cheeses. They always have, just different options than what you could just find at the grocery store. And so that's why I like to do that too when you're having guests over. They're experiencing something that they don't usually experience.
And a beautiful part of entertaining with that is sharing that. And maybe you've picked up stories from the shop too. Maybe there's something special behind that cheese or that cut of meat that can be shared, and that enhances the experience for everyone who's partaking in the board.
Okay, so what I like to do with this meat is just, everything on this board is just going to be in its form, pretty much, right? So I don't like to mess around with the meat much. I just kind of lay it down on the board as it wants to go, and I think that really adds to the look of it too.
I think being artfully piled is a nice display of it as well, and it really showcases the character of the meat on the board too.
Prosciutto is a nice meat to have in the antipasto platter too, because a popular thing that people like to do is take the breadsticks that we're going to put on the side later, wrap the prosciutto around the breadsticks so they get a little bit of both. This is mortadella, which is another favorite of mine. Ate a lot of this when I was in Italy. So the same thing. Sometimes I cut this in half because the pieces are a little bit bigger.
Yep.
But you just want it to flow nicely on the plate. The third type that I have chosen is a hot chorizo sausage. It's actually a Portuguese sausage that I have here.
Beautiful. It's going to look lovely on the board.
So this I've sliced because it's going to be hard for people to slice that themselves. The great thing about doing this too, using this kind of meat, you know, that comes in a sausage form like that, is that you can cut it and then you have, again, that visual appeal. So you have two piles of meat that are nicely piled up, but then you have, you know, a different shape, a different texture. So we'll just lie this in. And then there's lots of condiments on the side that we're going to add to this. I had a hard time picking out what I wanted to bring today just because there are so many different things that you can add to this antipasto platter. So I'll show you what we have here.
Okay.
We'll finish putting this on here. We'll get the crackers and the bread on as well. And then I'll give you some other ideas as well. If some of this stuff doesn't quite appeal to you, there's lots more out there.
Sounds great. So the basics are covered. When we come back, all of the other little specialty things that make an antipasto platter that much better. Coming up after the break.
Come and explore the new Terra, where color lives.
Welcome back to Terra at Home, where Chef Rachel and I are putting the finishing touches on her spectacular antipasto platter just in time for the Canada Day weekend. We've got a great selection of meats and cheeses, and Rachel, you've added some little extras as well.
Yeah, just some crackers. These are cheese water crackers. I have some almond cranberry crackers and some lavash. So an assortment of different crackers we have there. Some lots of good flavors there. Some bowls here of artichokes, roasted vegetables. You don't need a lot of those. They're more for, you know, decoration, but a couple people might like to try them.
Yep.
Some hot antipasto spread there, and this is all done. The platter's all done. We want to put some things on the side just to give it that extra little touch and a couple more things that people can nibble on.
Okay.
So in addition to the crackers I have here, I have breadsticks, and I have all these different jars and glasses that I use. So this one, for example, is the one that I put my breadsticks in, and it just gives the platter some height.
So again, keeping with that theme of it being not only appealing to the taste buds, it's visually appealing as well, and we're adding some elements of extra interest here with different containers, different heights, different colors, wonderful stuff.
It makes it look just a little more fancy. An assortment of olives here, right, because you have the different colors and sizes, and just into a martini glass, so that can go at the side there. And yeah, so it's very simple. As long as you have, you know, a couple different glasses and tools, you can really make it look spectacular. I'm going to finish it off with some strawberries.
Perfect.
Quickly.
All of the elements on the platter as well are sort of interchangeable. You can choose different meats, you can choose different spreads, and Chef Rachel will have some of her favorite options available at terragreenhouses.com, so you can find her guide to the perfect antipasto platter there, along with the rest of her recipes as well.
Yeah, so a couple of strawberries just to finish it off. Maybe some fresh figs or grapes.
Oh, it looks beautiful, just in time for some long weekend entertaining. Have a safe and happy long weekend, all of you at home, from all of us here on Terra at Home, and join us next week for more great tips from the kitchen, garden, and beyond.